Anyway,
I'll put those up with the others.
I'm ready when you are.
You're going to work on your computer. Right, well, I'm going to tidy the kitchen up and make some coffee.
I think we had a bad start. Certainly I had a bad start.
All right, see you in a minute then.
One of the problems of my upbringing was, first of all, my father died when I was very young, so there was no father figure, no male figure really in my upbringing. Secondly, I went to a single-sex Catholic grammar school in which any relationships with girls were totally discouraged as being not good for your study, not being good for your sanctity either, as far as I could make out. So when I got thrown into the arena of work and suddenly realised, because quite frankly till I was 16 I hadn't taken any notice of girls whatsoever, because I'd never really met many, except my sister, and she didn't interest me. When I suddenly got thrown in with all these girls, I found it very, very confusing.
And I also had quite a difficult start. My mother died when I was 13 years old after 2 or 3 very traumatic years of severe illness. Consequently, explaining to me the facts of life was something very low down on the agenda in family. We were just struggling to survive with illness and all the rest of it. I suppose I actually picked up the facts of life more or less like a lot of kids did in those days on the street corner from other kids, which wasn't an ideal start. And so I also went into marriage with not a lot of thought, and it wasn't really something we'd ever discussed tremendously in our engagement. In fact, most of our engagement was spent apart because Patrick was sent 200 miles away to work all the time we were engaged, so we only sort of phoned each other up once a fortnight and met once a month. So even at that time in life, we should have been talking about these things. We didn't really. We've got your communion list here.
I was shy, I was inhibited, I didn't really know the first thing about sex, quite frankly. And I think I took a lot of these hang-ups into marriage with me. I assumed that as far as the sexual relationship was concerned, it was something quite natural. It happened in the world of nature. Nobody told the birds and bees how to do it, but they managed. And I thought everything was going to work out easily. And one of the biggest shocks, I'm sure, to both of us in our early married life was that it wasn't all plain sailing.
Neither of us were actually equipped to talk about these things. We've both been brought up in a culture where one didn't discuss sex. I went to an all-girls convent school as well, and we didn't really have the best start.
I had been taught, basically, never to discuss this area. I was educated by very good Christian brothers, but the one thing they were very firm on was that there would never be any talk about sex, never any talk about women. So neither of us quite knew how to approach this subject, how to say that we weren't entirely satisfied in this area. I didn't actually understand entirely the emotional differences between men and women. And I just didn't know how to broach the subject at all with Pauline. So I must say that in our early married life, I found sex, instead of being a great blessing, a positive problem that I was trying to come to terms with the whole time.
Added to that dilemma, our first child was stillborn, which again put an awful, tremendous pressure on us in that area. We obviously had to discuss the whole area of children and the rest of it. But having lost a baby, I was very reluctant to become pregnant again at the time. I still had a lot of grieving to do.
It was such an awful experience. We didn't know, either of us, if we wanted to go through it again. And that then put a great pressure on sex as such, because it meant every time we made love, there was a certain fear about, we didn't know what the consequences were going to be. And that in its turn stopped us really enjoying what was happening. We got over that and we had a lovely little girl, which helped to cure a lot of those problems. I think the only cure to having lost a stillborn child is probably, if you can, to have another one.
Because of the consequences of our first pregnancy, I absolutely hated being pregnant. I loved the babies once they were born, and I wanted children, and I love dearly the children we've got. But the actual process of being pregnant was for me an extremely difficult one. And must have been a great strain for Patrick at that time too, because I really did need a lot of emotional support at that time just to get through those 9 months.
But then we got into this arena that we didn't either want hundreds of kids. I know people did, and I'm in no way trying to judge other people, but as far as we were concerned, we wanted as many children as we thought we could cope with emotionally, as we thought we could cope with financially, as we thought we could educate.
We're both Catholics, and we're both fairly committed Catholics as well, so this whole area of family planning again was something we had to look at. And using naturally family planning, which we decided to do, which wasn't as sophisticated or as advanced as it is in these days, and all these things come to bear on the whole relationship. You can't divorce a sexual relationship from a whole relationship. The two go together, we're spiritual creatures.
It was very difficult at certain times, but we stuck at it, basically, as we stick at everything, because we believed it was the right thing to do, and we believed it was what God wanted of us.
But sex is only a part of marriage, it isn't all of it. And there's been such a richness in all other areas which has spilled over into the sexual area as well. And over the years we've moulded together. Patrick has began to recognise that for a woman there has to be a whole area of being loved for the person that she is, to enjoy a sexual life, and it isn't so much just a purely physical thing with a woman as it is with a man in the same way. So recognising the basic differences in the emotional makeup of men and women has also been a great thing for us.
In the end, as Pauline said, we just had to learn, and it was a long process. We had to learn to be open with each other. I think we learned to be open with each other in every area of our lives except sex, and that took a lot more work.
And I think, to be fair, it is something we have worked through, and there is now a lot of love, a lot of depth in our sexual relationship. But it has been fraught over the years. But it's like every other area. It's only by honest, open communication that we'll move forward and we love each other. The sexual side of marriage has taken on a different role now. Obviously, when a woman gets past childbearing years, there isn't the worry of more children coming along, so you're able to enjoy each other much more. There's a deeper understanding and a richness now of the personalities and the spiritual dimension to sexuality, because you don't have the urgency that young people have either. So definitely sexuality is for the enhancement of our relationship now, first and foremost in every way.
Maybe there isn't the same urgency, but certainly there's a lot more peace, a lot more rest, and a lot more acceptance. So it's an area I think I could almost say we're proud of, because we've been through the mill in a big way on sex, and we've ended up not compromising our beliefs and being a lot happier.